Part 38. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 373. The giant mosquito's actions finally angered all the giant cannons even more. Maybe you can't use anger, because until now, Jia Yan doesn't know whether these things have their own thoughts and emotions. Maybe they are just things similar to human machines. But it's true that they are even more violent at this time. A huge red light emitted, just like the red rain waterfall rising slopingly. It kept pouring down, turning the entire world in Jia Yan's sight into a blood-red color. Visible to the naked eye, the gun barrels gradually turned red at this time. It seemed that the thick gun barrel could not block the temperature of the red light, and it looked like the gun barrel would melt. It can be seen how crazy their attacks are. You are crazy, I can be crazier than you. Jia Yan knew that perhaps this would be his strongest battle against the metal monster cannon. He did not believe that there would be a metal monster building more powerful than this building on the entire Earth, so at this time he, and also exerted his strongest strength. Daphne in the sky quietly poked out her head, looking at the battle below. Such a powerful battle process made the alien representative secretly speechless. With such a powerful attack, it would be extremely dangerous for her aircraft to withstand even one of them, but the big mosquito kept swerving back and forth in it, as if dancing a dance of death, and this dance did not seem to be very dangerous. At least to Daphne, the big mosquito seemed to be able to do it with ease. She didn't even know if those attacks would hit Big Mosquito's body, whether he would be seriously injured. Although reason told her that no matter how powerful Big Mosquito was, his exoskeleton would not be able to withstand the destructive red light. One blow, but after seeing the strength of the big mosquito, this idea seemed to become uncertain. Boom 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 boom. Another giant cannon fell downwards under the attack of the big mosquito, and during this period, the azure crystals in its body. It has changed hands, and the big mosquito instantly obtained a huge blue crystal again. There are fewer and fewer red light cannons left, and Jia Yan can dodge them more easily. Moreover, his body is also in constant high-intensity battle. Gradually getting used to such intensity of fighting, Jia Yan is still getting stronger quickly to a degree that no one else can imagine. At this time, the big mosquito was already so powerful that it was basically impossible to encounter an opponent on the Earth. So if he continues to become stronger, what level will he reach? This is not something that others can imagine. Boom boom boom. Under another attack, several giant cannons became mute under the attack of giant mosquitoes. And the blue crystals on their bodies were searched by Jia Yan one by one. Under such circumstances, each of those metal monsters were extremely excited, but they were useless against the big mosquitoes high in the sky. There is no other way than emitting a tiny red light from the top of his head. The biggest advantage of the giant mosquito on the Earth has always been that it can fly, and this advantage of flying has been preserved even in the vacuum of the universe. Too strong. It's a pity that the time I told you about the arrival of the exploration ship was a lie. There is no way you have the time to slowly evolve and become stronger. Daphne looked at the powerful evolved beast below, and her eyes twitched from time to time because of the power of this creature. However, she felt slightly relaxed when she thought about the false information she had released to the giant mosquito. She told Giant Mosquito that her Empire's exploration ship came to the Earth 20 years later, but in fact, the Empire used a paving the way space folding method, because when they walked out of the Earth, they have left traces of their past on the Star Road, so in this space, they can quickly return through special methods. The scientific principles involved are extremely complex. It is impossible for ordinary civilizations to understand the space in the universe and the science and technology of quantum conversion. Anyway, the final conclusion is that the Empire's exploration ship will return to Earth in 10 years. This is because Delphini calculated that the exploration ship will replenish energy on the way, which is a little extra time. If you give him 20 years, with the speed at which he becomes stronger, he might really pose a great threat when the exploration ship arrives. But if he is only given 10 years, even if he continues to be strong, he will not be able to may pose any threat to the exploration ship. Daphne looked at the giant mosquito below with a complicated look in her eyes. In fact, for Big Mosquito, she felt that she could be regarded as his teacher in disguise, but under such circumstances, it was impossible for her to really get along with Big Mosquito. Well, let's save my life in his hands now. Otherwise, how can I hold on until the exploration ship comes back? Of course, the best possibility is to let him. Thinking of this, the inexplicable look in Daphne's eyes filled her with even more light. The battle below was just as Daphne expected. After Jia Yandang destroyed more than half of the 5-meter cannon, he made even faster progress. His speed became even more intense. His attacks become more aggressive. That is an incredible sky overlord, even the strongest representative of this Earth world. If Daphne and others are the representatives of their respective civilizations on the Earth, then he, Jia Yan, may be the representative on the Earth. If he wants to conquer the Earth easily, he has to ask Big Mosquito whether he agrees or not. Boom 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 boom. The giant mosquito attacked again and again, and finally destroyed the last giant cannon without Daphne's eyes following it. On the ground, there were 20 huge cannon barrels lying in a mess, with countless metal monsters pressed against their slender barrels. These metal monsters can only be said to play a supporting role in this battle. Their attacks are just like scratching the giant mosquitoes. God knows, these things were still attacking a few months ago. He chased the big mosquito to the sky and into the earth, almost to death. Things in the world are so wonderful. The former opponent has now been trampled by him and turned into an enemy without the slightest threat. This transformation still makes the mosquito very obsessed. If you continue to get stronger, similar experiences will continue. Being strong and then enjoying being surpassed and defeated one by your opponents is the only thing that Big Mosquito enjoys now. When Big Mosquito eliminated all the giant cannons, his compound eyes finally focused on those ordinary metal monsters spread all over the floor. Boom! There was a huge explosion in the air, and the speed of the mosquito suddenly exceeded a limit. It has already surpassed the speed of sound, and now it is even faster. The metal monsters had no time to aim. Their shooting accuracy was not good to begin with, and now it was even more difficult to fight against the extremely fast body of the giant mosquito. Jia Yan, on the other hand, was able to control large areas of these metal monsters with the power of brain waves, and could even use the power of brain waves to directly tear them apart and turn them into fragments all over the ground. The giant mosquito that has obtained a powerful way to use brainwave power faces a large number of opponents. It is not only a little bit stronger. Although this battle was a battle between 1 and 20,000, the duration of the battle was not even as intense as the battle between the mosquitoes and those giant cannons. Even among the metal monsters, some of them killed each other, accidentally shooting red light on the bodies of the same kind, and even worse, they thought that the giant mosquito was attacking them, but after revealing themselves, the giant mosquito had already left. Near the body, countless metal monsters around him were turned into burial objects. 2,000 meters high in the sky of the building, Daphne was concentrating on the battle below. After the battle, she did not suffer any attacks here. Not long after, her concentrated expression was replaced by a faint charm. At the same time, a huge head slowly floated up from below. This figure almost covered the sky, making the scorching sun lose its luster. Long wait. Next, I need you to lead the way again. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 374. Daphne only felt that an incredibly powerful brainwave power wrapped around her lightly. After that, her body was unable to resist at all, and was lifted onto the opponent's back by this force. He became so much stronger in this battle. Daphne's heart trembled. At this time, the big mosquito's brainwave power controlled Daphne's body, and it seemed to have a certain degree of stability. Don't underestimate this stability, it may be a hurdle that a brainwave user in Daphne's empire may not be able to overcome in his lifetime. But this big mosquito, in such a short period of time, crossed. Daphne's face looked a little ugly. However, the evolution of this big mosquito can be said to have come to an end. The star condensation on the Earth may not be able to support his evolution again. Therefore, if he is sitting in Sleepy City, no matter how great his potential is, he will not be able to obtain it. Huge growth next time. Thinking of this, Daphne's face looked a little better. Under the huge building, there is already a large ocean of metal monster remains. This kind of ocean can be said to be extremely terrifying. The remains of metal monsters are torn apart in the ground, and some are even still having their assholes erupted. Thick smoke. Every metal monster is dead and can never die again. The sky is overwhelming, and the scenes after the battle are everywhere. The nearby ground no longer looks like a tourist attraction. The surrounding beaches have been exploded, forming a kind of sunken pit. Seawater flows into the pit and turns into large swimming pools. Complement each other. There are mushroom clouds in the sky one after another. Maybe there is some power of radiation in it, but it seems that this power is insignificant to the current big mosquito and Daphne. Both are falling to the ground. Jia Yan carried the woman Daphne on his back, and both of them looked at her. This covers an area of 2,000 meters. That is a 2-kilometer super behemoth. Even with so much damage after the battle, this towering building with a width and height of 2 kilometers is still standing in place at this time, not at all caused by the successive explosions. And there is any damage. Although it is still made of human building materials and some special rocks on the ground. However, if these things are thick to a certain extent, they can also make it difficult for even large mosquitoes. Jia Yan had tested it during the previous attack. The outer wall of this building is at least 50 or 60 meters thick. Such thickness. Even he would need a lot of strength to break it open. God knows how much energy those metal monsters expended. Only then can such a powerful 2,000-meter building be made. If humans were to see it, it might just be a miracle in the history of architecture. Jia Yan and Daphne looked at each other. Then he walked toward the entrance that looked like a bloody mouth at the bottom of the building. The exterior of the buildings here is still made of rough stones and building materials. And there was a faint whistling sound coming from nowhere. Having experienced the bloody storms, the two of them had nothing to fear in a place like this. But during the action, Jia Yan noticed that Daphne occasionally flashed a strange expression, which made him wary. This so-called representative of the empire would be weird if he could avoid causing trouble. Master, it seems there is no defensive power inside. Daphne said softly and softly. She knew that the rebellious mood she inadvertently showed seemed to be seen by the big mosquito, so she quickly made up for it. Jia Yan just nodded, and Daphne followed at his feet. If there was any abnormal movement, he would also make other moves. This representative of the empire has already learned a lesson about his own strength. He probably wouldn't do anything against him without weapons, right? The only danger may be waiting to accept the so-called benefits. If Daphne takes action at that time, then he can only rely on his own strength to see whether her strategy is stronger or his own strength. In fact, the risk is not small. God knows what kind of backups these so-called alien civilizations have. But wealth can be found in danger. If Jia Yan didn't even dare to take advantage of the situation when he had the upper hand, then it would be impossible for him to mutate to such a powerful level. Thinking that the combat skills he had unearthed from Daphne over the past few days had made him so powerful, wouldn't the so-called star mithril that Daphne valued more be more effective for him? Jia Yan was wrong. Daphne had no idea that Jia Yan could become so powerful in just a few days because of the combat skills she provided. If she knew, she would definitely have reservations. Unfortunately, at this time, both sides made a mistake in judging their opponents. That's right. Jia Yan misjudged how mysterious these civilizational methods are, while De Funi misjudged Jia Yan's power. The two of them each have their own agenda and head towards the tall building. Just as De Funi said, there is actually no defense in this tall building. There is not even a 2-meter diameter cannon on the first floor. Perhaps those metal monsters gathered outside the building to block Jia Yan with all their strength, so that all the defenses in the building were weakened, right? There was a glint in Jia Yanfu's eyes, and he was thinking about destroying the entire building at this moment. But thinking about the main task at this time, and there must be other internal defense cannons on the floors above, it is not that simple to easily deal with this towering building, so he held back. Let's wait until we get those so-called star mithrils and those so-called benefits. The two figures continued to go deeper and deeper into this huge building. This building is like other buildings. The first floor is about 10 meters high. Although it looks rough, it also has a unique charm. There were many twists and turns during the walk. The road that Jia Yan really couldn't pass was when his compound eyes flashed and he flicked over with his forefoot. With a huge explosion, the building walls collapsed, opening the road. The scorching sun's rays behind gradually dimmed as the buildings walked deeper and deeper. The surroundings gradually began to darken, and those metal monsters didn't need electric lights, so the place looked extremely eerie. De Funi seemed to be able to see in the dark, while Jia Yan, with his own brainwave power and compound eyes that had mutated several times, made everything around him look like daylight. If I remember correctly, that thing is underground not far away. Underground. Jia Yan's heart moved slightly when he heard what De Funi said. Before he could think about it, the two of them had already arrived at a huge staircase. This staircase goes downwards. Daphne glanced at the big mosquito. Her eyes, which were like twinkling stars, glowed with a strange light in the depths of the dimly lit building, making it impossible to understand her inner thoughts. Jia Yan's eyes also had an inexplicable glint. Perhaps the state of incompatibility between the two is about to end. Jia Yan will not underestimate this alien woman who calls him master, nor will he think that if she calls him master just a few words, he really can't kill her if she goes to Shiyuan. After going through so many ups and downs, he still has this murderous streak. Neither of them said anything else. De Funi and Jia Yan walked forward side by side. In other words, this kind of moving forward together was wrapped in Jia Yan's powerful brainwave power and moving forward together. Even if he makes any move, Jia Yan's brainwave power can kill him in an instant. This used to be the entrance to an underground world, but Oro transformed this place into his research institute. And when I came here last time, this staircase didn't exist. What's going on inside now, I don't know. Not sure anymore. Daphne said as she walked. The architectural style around the two people has undergone a huge change. Perhaps the Osto representative needs to conduct research in this place, so the underground buildings, walls, overhead ceilings, and building specifications have become more refined. Neither Jia Yan nor De Funi had the intention to watch these details. They were both vigilant as they walked forward. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Buletin Yu. Chapter 375. Bang bang bang. Click, click, click. The sound of the two people walking was slow and rhythmic. The surroundings were quiet, as if the previous battle did not exist. The scene in front of them turned into a strangely quiet style. Not far away is Oro's research laboratory. It's not much different from what it was a few decades ago. As Daphne walked along the road, she seemed to finally see the scene she had seen before, so she smiled. Jia Yan glanced at her slightly, and he could see something different in De Funi's smile. If she has any plans, they will be revealed next. I just don't know if Jia Yan can survive with his overwhelming strength. After thinking about this, Jia Yan smiled confidently in his heart. Perhaps this Daphne thinks that what she saw before is my limit. Wrong. My limit has not been shown yet. Because my body is not really powerful now with brainwave power or combat power, but defense. The mutation of the azure crystal has not reflected its power until now. Department, if Daphne thinks that she can deal with me by relying on ordinary means, then she has made a wrong calculation. Jia Yan has never forgotten that he used azure crystals for this mutation. The power of this star-condensed mutation is that it can make the defense stronger. However, it has been so long since the mutation was completed, and he has never encountered anything that required his full strength. It opens the crisis of azure defense, so this thing is still his biggest backup. The two of them each have their own evil intentions and move forward. After descending for at least 500 or 600 meters, the scenery in front of us finally became clear. Jia Yanfu's eyes suddenly felt a trace of fluctuation. He didn't expect that after walking up the long stairs, he would see such a scene. I saw a vast space in front of me, with a radius of 3 or 4 kilometers. And what made Jia Yan feel most familiar? This is the place. It was actually very similar to the underground world he saw under the factory on the border in the northeast of China. Also on the top of the head. I saw the slightly shining algae, and then the plants that reached the height of the sky. Everything is so familiar. The only difference is that in the center of this place stands a 5 or 6-story building. This building has a sense of technology. They are all metal buildings, and they seem to be in this place. There are also some strange machines in front of the building, looking at Jia Yan and Daifuni with serious anticipation. There are not many weird creatures that are common in the underground world of China. At most it's something for viewing. Jia Yan looked at this place with a look of nostalgia. However, this memory was soon replaced by a sense of clarity. After that, he glanced at Daifuni with his compound eyes. "Is this the place?" he asked. "Yes. The Star Mithril is in that building, but with my current strength, those guards may not be able to defeat them," Daphne said, shrugging seemingly helplessly. Jia Yan snorted coldly. He knew that if Daifuni really wanted to fight, with the strength of her brain waves, it would still be possible for her to explode with great strength. But if she didn't want to fight now, she might just be conserving her strength for the future. But the matter of those few machines is simply a piece of cake for Jia Yan now. Since she wants to play tricks, let's grant her wish. Jia Yan looked at the round machines less than 500 meters away. These machines were much less similar to metal monsters. There were 2 gun barrels protruding out, and they were also larger than ordinary metal monsters. It looks 2 or 3 times bigger. Although it seems very strong. However, for today's big mosquitoes, they are not much different. His strength is no longer something that these single machines can compete with. Boo! Not long after Daifuni finished speaking, she felt the big mosquito next to her suddenly flash. His body of more than 10 meters was originally extremely obstructive when he came down the stairs, but when he reached the slightly more open area, his speed exploded. Boom! Before Daphne could come to her senses, she heard an explosion near the building not far away. The huge body had already appeared at that place, directly stabbing a mechanical monster and nailing it to the ground. Although its body is huge, it is not inflexible at all. This big mosquito can even launch an offensive in a relatively narrow place. Daphne analyzed the giant mosquito's fighting ability, but the more she analyzed it, the more she felt that the opponent didn't seem to have much weakness. Boom boom boom. The battle over there started in an instant, but ended in an instant. The 5 Osta mechanical monsters were either pierced or crushed by Jia Yan's feet one by one after just a few encounters. The control of the battle was also extremely strong, and even those machines were unable to launch an effective counterattack, and they all died. Daifune couldn't help but frown. This giant mosquito is not only physically powerful, but also has an extremely powerful fighting spirit. If Daphne hadn't known about it, he might have been an individual that had not survived for more than a year. It is very possible that it was suspected that this was an individual that had lived for a few years. 100-years-old monster who has evolved into a beast with rich fighting experience. Jia Yan did not live for hundreds of years, but after his rebirth, he has been fighting. Even when there is no battle, he has been using his relatively flexible brain to constantly simulate various battles. Compared with those so-called evolved beasts, perhaps his thinking is stronger, so Daphne has such an illusion. Come on. After Jia Yan solved a few machines, he looked at Daifune over there, controlled his brainwave power and said calmly. Not far away, Daifune is still wrapped in his brainwave power. Even if he is hundreds of meters away, if he wants to kill the opponent, he can easily kill him directly by using the advanced version of his brainwave power. The kill. Daifune's face over there is hidden in the darkness, and it seems that at this moment, a smile appears on the corner of her mouth. This woman, with a faint smile on her delicate face, seemed to finally have the means to win at this moment. Owner. Her mouth was slightly opened, and there was a touch of bright red under the slightly opened and closed cherry mouth. When Jia Yan saw this woman's face, his heart suddenly jumped. At this time, he didn't care at all and just unleashed his brainwave power. Drag Daifune directly towards your direction. Although Jia Yan doesn't know what kind of methods this woman has, Jia Yan has shown such powerful methods along the way. She still dares to use her backhand at this time, so this backhand must be someone she thinks has great power. Maybe he can trick Jia Yan. Daifune over there, her body was pulled by the brainwave power emitted by Jia Yan, and her body suddenly moved at this moment. But at this moment, Jia Yan found that his brainwave power suddenly stopped. What happened? Jia Yan was shocked and continued to activate his temporary brainwave power, but he was shocked to find that his brainwave power could no longer spread that far. It seemed that there was a strong suction force near his body, and even his brainwave power was severely suppressed. Absorb it hard. At the same time, Jia Yan found that his body also retreated. This powerful suction force even attracted his body. Even though Jia Yan was very confident, at this moment, he was also a little panicked. After all, even though he has faced so many crises, he has never encountered such a strange situation. Giggle, Master, goodbye. Daphne's voice over there became a little blurry. Jia Yan felt that the world was spinning, and everything became extremely ethereal. Perhaps the only image left in sight is the smiling face of Delphine. Unable to play with this woman. At this moment, Jia Yan only felt that his mind was filled with rage. After that, this anger transformed into perhaps the strongest brainwave power he has ever had. Boom! A powerful burst of power. Jia Yan could only hear a horrified female voice shouting "Ah!" There was no effect at all. The world in front of him had completely turned into a mass of paste. The powerful mosquito actually lost consciousness at this moment. Ahem, a new plot begins. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 376. Ups and downs, time, space, and even one's own existence seem to have lost their meaning. This is a pleasant feeling. If it can continue like this, it seems that all worries and all pain will disappear. Don't want to wake up. But it's impossible not to wake up. If you never wake up like this, the only thing waiting for you is death. Jia Yan seemed to have understood this while fainting. He doesn't expect anyone's salvation, nor does he expect any miracles. In this world, the only thing you can rely on is your own strength. At least until now, this is the survival experience of the big mosquito. Since my rebirth, I have always relied on myself. It was like this before, and it will definitely be like this in the future. So, I want to wake up. Control my own destiny. The tough thoughts in Big Mosquito's mind became more and more solid. I control my own life. Boom 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 boom. There is an inexplicable and strange sound in my ears, which is continuously transmitted. Jia Yan forced himself to get better, and his sanity gradually recovered. But the sound in his ears immediately shocked him greatly. There was also the severe pain in his body, which was the first time he felt it in his mutated body. Such a powerful attack. Or something else. Jia Yan forced his vision to regain its clarity. But everything in front of me seems to be a kind of chaos. Waves of dim and lustrous things are rushing in all around. Puff 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 puff. Jia Yan seemed to be able to hear a strong vibrating sound in his body, which was transmitted to various parts of his internal organs. Pain. Huge pain. Jia Yan forced his body, which had been unconscious for an unknown amount of time, to pull himself together. All his muscles tightened his body in an unprecedented state of tension. In this way, the defense lost due to fainting becomes powerful again. The huge pain finally hit him the first moment he woke up. It's a little easier because of the improved defense. Observing himself, Jia Yan was horrified to find that the blue in his exoskeleton was fully activated. This big mosquito was actually washed away by those inexplicable things in this unknown environment. I brushed up enough to activate my blue defense. You know, this is only when there is an incredible attack. This kind of azure defense is only possible. But under the wash of things like a tide in front of me, after this mutation, the blue defense that had never appeared before actually appeared. Jia Yan looked around hard, but found nothing. There were just waves of things around him that seemed to be like a tide, constantly washing over Jia Yan's body. No matter how many there are, even today's big mosquitoes can't see anything. What exactly is this place? The big mosquito wants to take a deep breath. But as expected, I felt that there was no air at all here. No air? Vacuum environment. No wonder the pressure felt in the body is not as balanced as it is on Earth. What's going on? What did that Daphne do to me? Why am I here? Jia Yan told himself to calm down. He still remembered the moment before. The cunning woman Daphne once again used a trick to get me to this inexplicable place, and then I lost my consciousness. This time it was because I wanted to take risks. It seems that I thought too highly of myself and fell into her trap again. Jia Yan found out helplessly. The other party was actually using a conspiracy. Both he and Daphne knew that there would definitely be some conflict between the two parties at an important moment. Daphne is indeed an old monster who has lived for hundreds of years. She has grasped the mentality of the big mosquito and has the wisdom to win the final victory. And he couldn't resist the temptation of so-called benefits. Still fooled. You bastard woman, Jia Yan cursed helplessly. In fact, he wanted to scold himself for this sentence. He was greedy and mischievous. He thought that relying on his own strength, he could really be unafraid of anything. However, he did not expect that these so-called alien representatives were actually all mature figures. How could this be possible? He was plotted by himself so easily. What is this thing that is coming in waves? It has such a powerful impact, all at once. If my blue defense hadn't been activated, I might have died. Jia Yan looked at the things spreading in front of him, like water patterns. When these things spread to the front of Jia Yan's body, they seemed to have ripples, impacting the exoskeleton of Jia Yan's body to the point of collapse. It seemed that every attack was far more powerful than the attacks Jia Yan had suffered before. If I had to use a metaphor, maybe the power of this ripple seems to be not much different from the power of the red light cannon. In other words, Jia Yan, who has now turned on the blue defense, is enduring a red light attack from the red light cannon every moment. What a terrible thing. But the big mosquito still endured it. What he relies on is his own powerful azure defense. Needless to say, The Mosquito's survival now relies on this blue defense. The powerful defense is the basis of his survival. Jia Yan fiercely resisted all the ripples, and those ripples were everywhere. It seemed that they were everywhere where he was now. Where is this place? My body may not have breathed for an hour or two. Although according to my mutated body, I may be able to persist for 40 or 50 hours without breathing, but under such a strong confrontation, this kind of time it will only be compressed into less than 10 hours. Jia Yan was almost exhausted. Everything around him was like bursts of chaos, but in these bursts of chaos, there was a kind of ripple like a mountain roaring and a tsunami, which looked extremely strange. Under such circumstances, Big Mosquito could not properly correct his thoughts. The more he thought about some things, the less he understood them. As time passed, his head became dizzy. This is a sign that your body is about to reach its limit. No. I must cheer up. Just as Jia Yanqiang was telling himself to cheer up, he suddenly felt a soft body behind his body, gently resting on his back. He had this feeling before, but because of the waves of erosion, he didn't have time to turn around and watch. Death is not far away now, so it doesn't matter if we look at it. Feeling exhausted, Jia Yan looked behind his body. There is no light here, but after Jia Yan's own blue defense is turned on, his exoskeleton appears with a faint glow, which can illuminate some nearby things. So at this moment, he discovered at a glance that the soft thing behind his body was actually a very familiar object. She is a woman. And she is a beauty with long red hair, elegant posture, and refined beauty. Daphne. Jia Yan was so surprised that his defense almost relaxed for a moment. I know, this guy seems to have been affected to this place because of my last attack. And he also kept hiding behind me because of my front and rear feet, and because I defended against the ripples, he saved his life. Daphne was also unlucky. She had tried all her tricks and even said goodbye to such a handsome Jia Yan. But in the end, due to an oversight, he was attacked by a giant mosquito. Now she is unconscious with her eyes closed tightly. She doesn't know if it is because of the special strength of her body. She doesn't need to breathe here, and she doesn't die easily because of the ripple energy. Look. Of course, the biggest reason why he is alive is because Jia Yan, the big mosquito, blocked most of the ripple energy in front of him. Although you survived, you are going to die now. Jia Yan moved his front feet, and the sharp knife-shaped horns of his front feet floated above the woman's head. But this stabbing movement stopped due to his thoughts. No, the current situation is very strange. Since she is also here, I need her to give an explanation and even give me hope of escape. Once again, I beg everyone for genuine subscriptions. Bulletin you knows that the writing of this book is not very good, but with so few subscriptions, I am helpless. I haven't been lazy a day in more than half a year, and I haven't stopped updating for a day. For this kind of effort, all I ask is for each brother to subscribe for a month. In return, it's just a few dollars. Please support by you, a few dollars a month. There really isn't much money, right? Thank you Bulletin you. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin you. Chapter 377. A new journey begins. Please subscribe to the official version, and thank you book friends who rewarded me, thank you. Escape first, then consider killing her. Thinking of this, the big mosquito did not kill him. But at this moment, Jia Yan was paying attention to the unconscious woman and did not notice. In front of his body, a ripple of light appeared, suddenly blooming. This is a strange place, with no air around it, and a gray-yellow star hanging alone in the vacuum of the universe. The surrounding star clouds show that this place is still a young star system that has just emerged. Being young means disorder. Pieces of meteorites and stars with no regular orbits are floating randomly in the interstellar space. Some strange substances are constantly moving around. This is not a galaxy that can breed life, at least it does not have the foundation to breed life. If left like this for a billion or billions of years, perhaps this young star system might give birth to life, or even give birth to an intelligent race. But, in this young galaxy, at this time, but at an inappropriate time, signs of life appeared. It was an Earth-yellow planet. This planet seemed to be a super-Earth. Its diameter was 3 times the length of the Earth, so its surface area was dozens of times larger. In such a star, life that should not have appeared in it. Patches of gray-yellow color appear on the surface of the planet. They seem to have the same tone as the gray-yellow theme of the entire planet, but they are still a little different against the surrounding soil. This is a gray-yellow jungle. In the jungle, various trees appear strangely, and they seem to have a strange way of growing. Each of them has gray-yellow trunks and gray-yellow leaves, seemingly everything. All are grayish-yellow. Even if there are some low-profile ones, they are at most black or simple in color. It seems that these things want to make the planet where they are located more simple. Its main color is only grayish-yellow. Boom boom boom. The earth trembled, and a flash of light reached the sky. The gray-yellow sky and earth were illuminated until a fiery red light appeared. This is like a signal. In this world, countless rays of light are shining rapidly. During this period, countless flying things shone and rose in the sky and the earth. They may be flying in the sky and dropping huge objects, or shooting powerful red light in the sky. When those rays of light reached the ground, they directly caused incredible explosion power. The earth is constantly shaking, and shock waves are boiling, seeming to annihilate the entire gray-yellow earth. And those things that were dropped were even more terrifying. After they exploded, the gray-yellow mountains and forests on the ground were left. Pieces upon pieces of it were bombarded into the sky, and the flames started to burn. Everything on the earth was burned by it, and it was almost completely covered. Under these powerful attacks, beneath the earth. But there is a strange thing that is constantly moving in it. They are extremely fast. And when he moved, the momentum was huge. These are some incredibly powerful monsters. Many of them are flying individuals. Something flying above a ship was caught by a flying monster below without paying attention. It screamed and soared into the sky, and the speed it soared into the sky blew away all the explosions around it. They all blew away, which shows that the power of this monster can no longer be described by a simple metaphor. Boom boom boom. After the monster flew up, one of his slender feet directly stabbed the aircraft in the sky, causing the aircraft to explode with a bang. All the monsters below were fighting hard while making loud roars. The aircraft in the sky were retreating steadily under the attack of countless monsters. More flying monsters flew into the sky, attacking the aircraft that seemed to be as many as locusts, killing them all in the sky. For a while, the aircraft couldn't bear it anymore. Finally, an extremely huge flying fortress with a length of even 300 meters was exploded by the first flying monster with a spur. Beep 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 beep. The sharp roar was transmitted to the entire battlefield. All the aircraft retreated one by one at this time. Those that could not retreat were directly exploded under the attack of countless flying monsters, adding a touch of metallic color to the gray-yellow land. And when those monsters saw the battle above their heads, they all let out shocking roars. It seems to be threatening the enemy, and it seems to be venting the joy of victory. In this weird battle scene, in the slightly rippling air, it seemed that it was still being bombarded by the largest ammunition in the war, and there was a constant flow of shock waves. Right at the center of the explosion. Bo! There seemed to be some cracking sound coming from here. After that, a terrifying ripple-like thing suddenly appeared in the center of the empty explosion crater. The ripples spread, and the center of the explosion, which was already very dilapidated, was like the tide, constantly invading. With every attack, the ground dropped silently. Those things that disappeared did not seem to explode into fine matter, leaving not even a trace behind. It seemed to have completely disappeared, Not even a single atom or molecule was left behind. The scene was extremely strange. However, the power of the ripples is not continuous. After gradually scraping away a layer of the center point of the explosion, making it look like a smooth mirror, it gradually reduces the frequency of the explosion. It seemed like it was about to disappear without anyone noticing. But just before the ripples suddenly dissipated, phew! A huge foot, like lightning, struck out from the center of the ripples at lightning speed. This time, at the center of the explosion, the ripples became even stronger. However, because this place is on the edge of the battlefield, the previous explosion also knocked all the monsters away into the distance. Those monsters seemed to be in the excitement of victory and did not notice this small strange place at all. In no time, the ripples flashed more intensely, and a faint blue brilliance appeared where the front foot appeared. The body behind the brilliance looked like a gigantic creature bathed in the twisted air. He used all his strength, like a peerless beast that was entangled in shackles and trying to escape. Crazy twisting. This monster has a long mouth parts, and its long legs are even more terrifying than its mouth. These long legs are now surging out towards the outside world. The powerful force seems to tear the world apart. Boom boom boom. The surrounding air continued to oscillate. But the sparkle in the piercing compound eyes of this huge creature was even brighter. Finally, his head broke free of the shackles. After that, it's his body. After that, there is his pair of incredible, extremely strong wings. Boom boom boom. The movement here seemed to really attract the attention of some of the celebrating monsters. Buzz buzz. There is a part of flying being that is trying to fly towards this place. The monster that broke free at this moment, the light in the compound eyes was so intense that it seemed to be able to compare with the gray-yellow flames in the sky. Click, click, click. With almost a flash of freedom, his legs finally escaped from the scope of the ripples. Even after his abdomen completely appeared, there was still an unknown female-like creature from Earth lying on its back. Just after he completely left the place where the ripples were, the sparkling ripples behind him suddenly shook at this moment. Bo! It seemed like a closing sound appeared behind the huge creature. The ripples actually completely disappeared. The situation here, except that the ground collapsed 70 or 80 meters due to the continuous sweeping of the ripples, it seems that nothing happened. There are no ripples or other abnormalities. On the surface, it seems that it has completely recovered. As is. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 378. Of course, the place that had returned to calm on the surface was now filled with the giant creature with wings that suddenly appeared here. And the woman unconscious on his body. The monster that had escaped from trouble had an inexplicable luster in its compound eyes. He looked behind his body and there seemed to be a hint of fear in the place where the ripples were flashing. Is this? The monster surveyed and broke through the place where ripples were raging, and found that there was a silver gray thing at its feet that was the size of an adult's head. Please take a look at it all. There is an obscure silver color on the surface of this object, and there is a lot of light on it, and the mist is constantly flowing in it, giving it a very mysterious look. The monster felt strange, but his heart moved and he picked up the object. He was about to take a good look, but at this moment, he was suddenly startled. In the sky not far away, gray flying shadows are approaching. As if it felt them, the flying monster pondered for a while, and then his expression changed. He caught the woman in his feet and at the same time vibrated his pair of giant wings on his abdomen. Flap your wings. Flying low. Not long after, a dozen weird flying creatures came from not far away and flew here one by one. None of them knew what happened before. They just felt the strange energy here, and then they came. Unexpectedly, when they came, they found that the place was in chaos, as if another powerful explosion had occurred. Those monsters didn't know if they had any way of communicating. After staying here for a while, they seemed to judge that there was no threat, so they continued to fly away one by one. Not far from where they left, there is also a flying body. This body looked vaguely frightened while flying. What kind of place is this place? It looks like the environment is different from the Earth. Could it be that I really traveled through time? How could such a thing happen? Jia Yan looked at the surrounding environment, and then fixed his gaze on Daifuni on his back. No matter what, the only one who can explain it to me at this time is this woman. I hope he can wake up soon. Before that, I can't come into contact with those monsters. Jia Yan had seen it before. The bodies of those flying monsters were all extremely ferocious, like ugly toads. The scary thing is that these toads also have the ability to fly. Although the few I saw before, it seems that they are only existences with an individual length of less than 10 meters, but they are creatures like them. They are already monsters on Earth. Although Jia Yan was happy and unafraid, as he was new to the country, he had to put understanding of the current situation first. The world in front of me is gray and yellow. In this gray and yellow, large areas of tree-like life are swaying among them. The individual trees are also very different. Although the main color is basically gray-yellow, there are some exceptions. Also, the ecosystem here seems completely different from what Jia Yan has seen before. Look at the creatures of different colors. Walking through the woods, Jia Yan's heart skipped a beat. It seems that it really isn't the Earth. Everything happening is too weird. What is going on? Because he had too many doubts about the situation, Jia Yan took Daifuni to a place similar to a dense forest, and he found a place to hide. This place is very suitable for hiding. Jia Yan looked at the surrounding environment. I saw dozens of trees growing in the sky, supporting the entire forest. They were more than 100 meters tall, and there were also some small shrub-like plants below. When Jia Yan arrived at this place, he directly can hide in it. Very convenient. He threw Daifuni aside casually, and then lay on the ground, secretly thinking about the current situation. This place seemed to belong to the depths of a dense forest. Jia Yan flew all the way, and when he arrived here, no matter how hard he tried to spread his brainwave power, he could no longer sense the breath of those monsters. Okay, now think about it. In the Underground Research Institute in Australia, there seemed to be a strange force that absorbed my body into it. Then I tried my best to release a brainwave attack. It seemed that with that blow, Daphne also brings that power. As for what happens next, it's all about me waking up under the constant wash of ripple power. The light of wisdom in Jia Yanfu's eyes kept flashing. This failure may have been caused by his being too greedy, but Jia Yan has no regrets at all. This is a biological instinct. It seems that he already knows that it is difficult for him to get a chance to mutate and become stronger on the Earth or even in the entire solar system. If the benefits mentioned by Daphne, or the star mithril, are really if there is, even if there is a little risk, he still wants to get these things. He ended up like this because of greed. Rather, it was Jia Yan's hard work since his rebirth that made him like this. If he didn't fight, he wouldn't have become so powerful. If he didn't fight, he might have become food for flying creatures as a little mosquito, or he might have died of old age in that unknown village on Earth. So even if he ended up like this, Jia Yan only felt that it was because he was not lucky enough and had no regrets at all. In that rippled land, it was like going through a protracted battle, and Jia Yan's physical strength was greatly exhausted. He is lying on the ground now and needs a good rest. But when he thought of the so-called star mithril, Jia Yan's heart suddenly moved, and he took out the silver-gray object that appeared with him on this planet before. There seems to be a vague feeling that this object is the so-called star mithril. Although he hasn't felt any attraction to him yet, at this time, He has a strong hunch that this object is what he wants. The star mithril. After all, those who can follow him and withstand the powerful ripple attack must be extraordinary, and the thing that seems to be most suitable for the Underground Research Institute is the so-called star mithril. Of course, everything can only be asked after Daifune wakes up. Jia Yan was very lucky that he was able to pull this female alien representative into the water at a critical moment. Otherwise, facing the current scenery alone, he would definitely be ahead and he would not be able to think of a way to return to Earth. This woman must have a way to go back. Jia Yan looked at Daifune, whose red hair was spread out on the ground. Because of this incident, this woman's protective clothing, which was already in tatters, was even more unable to cover up her exposed white skin, which was full of spring and glow, as if it could not be concealed. If this was a real teenage girl, it would be really eye-catching, but she happened to be an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years. Jia Yan was still moved when he saw such stunning beauty, but when he thought about it, a woman's age is as uncomfortable as swallowing dozens of flies. However, I also gained something from the previous Ripple Land. There, I not only saw the strongest defensive state of my body, but this will help me have a grasp of my strongest defense when I fight in the future. And it seems that my defense has also undergone strong changes due to such constant attacks. Jia Yan knew that his body had undergone more changes under the constant attacks, that is, the blue color seemed to be more conspicuous. Even though he had escaped from the mysterious Ripple place, his body still glowed with blue luster after such a long time. However, this kind of consumption is also huge. Not long after, Jia Yan felt that his body was feeling hungry. But there is nothing for him to eat in this place, and Jia Yan himself doesn't know how long it has been since he sucked blood. He has always used the remaining energy of the mutation to support his survival, but now his body as it is so huge and powerful that after the great battle, the consumption of the body cannot be easily dealt with by the remaining energy from before. With such a big body, do I still want to suck blood? Is there anything I can suck blood from? Jia Yan felt hungry, but now he could only smile bitterly. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 379. Jia Yan's body is already 17 meters long. With such a huge body, it is really impossible to suck blood until he is full. Unless he is given a blue whale that is 30 meters long, or even several, he will not be able to feed himself, and the blue whale will die. But there are no blue whales nowadays. As for Daifune, forget it. Although this woman is also a powerful alien representative, if she really sucks her blood, even if she is sucked to death, Jia Yan estimates that even my own mouthparts cannot be moistened by blood. And God knows if her blood is poisonous. Jia Yan just fell silent in his thoughts and slowly entered a state of sleep. After all, he was really tired for more than 10 hours. Maintaining the blue defense state for a long time, even he now cannot easily bear it. I don't know how long it took, maybe a dozen hours, or maybe a day or two. Just when the hungry Jia Yan was slowly awakened by his own hunger. Phew. 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 Not far away from his body, there were suddenly strange sounds that kept echoing. He suddenly opened his eyes. At the same time, not knowing whether it was an appointment or not, Jia Yan only saw the red-haired Daifune lying on the ground near him, also opening her eyes. This woman first looked at the sky in confusion. But in an instant, she realized that the world in front of her was different from all the scenery in her memory. The woman was stunned. After that, she quickly turned over, an evil aura suddenly appeared in her beautiful big eyes. Apparently she remembered the gap between her and the big mosquito in the underground world. Soon, she found herself beside her body. It's a creature that looks like a hill, crawling ferociously. A pair of compound eyes flashing with a faint luster looked at her. The huge pressure from the upper creatures was almost substantive, and the woman couldn't breathe. At this time, her memory was still more than a day ago. In the Research Institute of Oro on Earth, she was the one who was dealing with this big mosquito. The trump card was used again. How could the other party forgive me now? So this woman's face suddenly turned pale at this moment. She was so close to the big mosquito. If the other party had any malicious intentions, there was absolutely no reason for her to survive. However, when Big Mosquito saw her waking up, he just said lightly, "Don't make any sound," then he stopped caring about her. Daphne's face paled slightly, but at this moment, she suddenly remembered that this place seemed very strange, and the scenery was the same as she had been in the Milky Way for so long. Every place you see is different. At this time, Daphne's face became paler and paler, as if she was thinking of something. However, Jia Yan, who was alert to the surrounding situation, simply ignored her and missed the change in her complexion. Jia Yan is not watching this woman, but she will observe the scenery herself. Not long after, she also discovered the current situation. The voices over there were slowly approaching, and they seemed to be some huge monsters. At this time, the world is a little gray, and the sky above this planet is a little dark. There is a round of flames that is dimmer than the sun, but at this time, it is already on the horizon, sinking more and more, and it seems that it will disappear completely before long. Jia Yan also looked at the huge star above his head. This scene. It is impossible to see it on the earth. In other words, Jia Yan is very likely to be the first creature to see the sun rise and set in other galaxies. But there was no time for emotion at this time. Jia Yan felt that the huge creatures over there were getting closer and closer, and it seemed that they would come to his side in a short time. Click, click, click. A series of sounds sounded in the nearby place. These sounds seemed so abrupt in the quiet gray-yellow forest. It seems to be stepping on the beat of human heartbeat, extremely depressing. Jia Yan, as a combat creature who already has a master's style in combat, can judge the approximate combat power of the opponent from the size of the infrared heat source of these creatures and the fluctuations when they move around. These things are definitely not easy to mess with. The luster in Jia Yanfu's eyes shone with a hint of shock. Although he still doesn't know what kind of place this place is, he does not hinder his judgment on the danger of this place and continues to rise to the next level. Suddenly, Jia Yan thought he had concealed those times. Suddenly, his biological sense organs noticed that these behemoths were actually approaching them at a distance of only 300 to 400 meters, and started to speed up. Boom 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 boom. A roaring sound suddenly arose from a place not far away. Those powerful creatures actually had sensory organs similar to Jia Yan's. At this moment, they suddenly moved towards the place where Jia Yan and the two of them were, and charged towards them. No, Jia Yan didn't hide his shock at all at this time. In other words, he was used to being powerful in the Earth world, but when he suddenly encountered these life forms that could easily detect him, it was normal for him to be shocked. However, the feeling of fighting for a long time still made him react quickly. With one forefoot, he picked up Daphne, who was still in shock from the ground. This woman seemed to understand the current situation and did not resist when Jia Yan's sharp front foot stabbed her. But he was very obedient and was stabbed by Jia Yan's front foot and caught in it. Very good, very cooperative. Jia Yan secretly praised the other party. In fact, if Daphne wants to resist at this time, his arrest will turn into a real stabbing, killing Daphne directly. After all, at this time, we can't be kind to women. God knows what kind of existence these guys are. If he escapes and Daphne is caught by them, if the other party is also an intelligent species, then it is very likely that he will be able to escape from her. He knew his situation from his mouth, so it was impossible for Jia Yan to keep Daphne alive. Even if the other party does not have wisdom, or they have wisdom and civilization, they still cannot communicate with Daphne. But Jia Yan doesn't know this now, so he can only act as if the other party can communicate with Daphne. Fortunately, this woman didn't do anything stupid. After Jia Yan picked it up, his wings spread out. Boom boom boom. Suddenly, the brainwave power was activated, and the huge monsters that were chasing behind him also appeared in front of him. There are 5 of these monsters in total. Their appearance is like that of a frog, and the size of each one is about 7 or 8 meters. The only strange thing is that they have 4 legs, their chests stand up high, and a pair of arms stretch out from their shoulders. The 4-fingered palms of these arms grasp some weapons made of trees or metal seemed primitive, but the shining luster on them made Jia Yan dare not look down upon them. The other party seemed to have seen Jia Yan's huge body. All the frogs had a very human look of shock on their faces. After all, Jia Yan looked at these monsters in horror, but when the other party suddenly saw a giant creature that was 17 or 8 meters long and stood much taller than them, he was definitely even more surprised. But after seeing the big mosquito trying to escape, these monsters recognized the situation one by one. This weird giant life seemed to be afraid of them. In that case, they didn't need to worry about anything at this time. It needs to be attacked. An individual frog monster, which seemed to have a higher status than the other 4, aimed the huge half-meter thick wooden stick in its hand at the large mosquito that was fluttering its wings and about to fly. Roar! Dash! He took a deep breath, and then let out a roar that shook the world from his bloody mouth. His body swelled up visibly to the naked eye, and then he aimed at the direction in which Jia Yan flew up, grabbed the half-meter thick wooden stick held by his arm, and hit Jia Yan hard. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 380. This blow can be said to swallow mountains and rivers with overwhelming power. The first moment it was emitted, it had already exceeded the speed of sound on Earth, and was even more terrifying than that, possibly reaching several times the speed of sound. Careful! Daphne was caught in Jia Yan's hand. When she saw such a terrifying blow, her face turned pale and she shouted to remind Jia Yan. Jia Yan wanted to use his fastest speed to dodge, but as soon as his wings moved, the feeling of hunger in his body that he had not eaten quickly invaded him. Hunger. Weak. This is a feeling that Jia Yan has not experienced for a long time. He originally thought that he would be completely cut off from the senses of these ordinary creatures, but what he didn't expect was that these feelings actually appeared at this critical moment. Jia Yan found that his wings could not flap faster. That attack cannot be avoided. The light in Big Mosquito's eyes at this time was also extremely powerful. At this time, he knew that his body might be the weakest point in history. If he could not avoid this attack, God knows if his body could hold it. So at this moment, Jia Yan made his body move quickly, not by force, but by avoiding. To put it bluntly, Jia Yan actually realized when the opponent took action that if he was in good condition, he would not be afraid of this attack at all, but now this situation is completely different. If it is a hard connection, it may end up being hit by an attack and injured later. The only thing Jia Yan can be sure of is that the blue defense has only a very small power left, and he doesn't know if it will appear now. Buzz. The big mosquito in poor condition makes that strange flapping sound at this time. This sound is actually the sound of the big mosquito flapping its wings because it is not strong enough at this time. None of it was caused by the strong state in the past. Buzz buzz. Jia Yan felt that his movements were really too slow, but in fact, at this time, he still exceeded twice the speed of sound. After all, with such big wings, no matter how unpleasant the sound of spreading the wings is, it must still be very fast. Kankan moved his body away from the spot before the flying half-meter thick wooden stick arrived. With just one dodge, he managed to dodge the stick in a very thrilling way. The wooden stick rubbed Jia Yan's body and flew past with a whistling sound. It wasn't until it flew a few kilometers away that it slowly fell. This shows the power of this blow. How terrible! But this is not the end. Jia Yan dodged the blow and was about to spread his wings and fly in another direction when the frog monster over there roared, and the remaining smaller frog monsters also ran forward. One of them took a stick from his hand. Wooden sticks of similar size were also smashed out, and several others came out one by one from his waist tied with rattan. He pulled out something like a boomerang and slammed it towards Jia Yan's location. "These guys, do you think I'm really afraid of them?" When Jia Yan saw the attacks of these monsters, the cruel look in his eyes was about to appear. But at this moment, the feeling of weakness in his body suddenly reminded him. The current Jia Yan is in an incomplete state. The combat effectiveness may be at least 5 or 6 times weaker than normal. If you still bite the bullet and fight those frog monsters at this time, the possibility of losing is extremely high. So after a flash of anger, he corrected his emotions, vibrated his wings harder, and ran forward. And those attacks. It's also very personal. In the eyes of these monsters, Jia Yan's speed was not impossible to defeat. In other words, the partners they saw fighting together were even more powerful than this seemingly huge monster. I have been with those flying guys for a long time, and flying at such a speed is nothing. The flight of the giant mosquito was actually despised. But at this time, because of his anger, Jia Yan seemed to have lost a little of his original strength. After all, every living thing has the same kind of adrenaline that people on Earth have. Under normal circumstances, this power is hidden, but in real crises, this power will be revealed. No one knows whether ordinary mosquitoes have such a body structure, but the current Jia Yan may have undergone mutation and possesses such a taboo-like power. Suddenly, Big Mosquito felt incredible power suddenly emerge from his body. He had an idea and his wings vibrated crazily. At the same time, the brainwave power is also activated. The two activated their power together, and an incredible scene appeared. With just one movement, the giant mosquito's body suddenly increased in speed. Boom 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 boom. The powerful force caused the mosquito to go from a speed of about twice the speed of sound to more than 5 times the speed of sound in an instant. In an instant, the mosquito's body seemed to teleport and appeared directly in the distant sky. And the weapons that attacked him were unable to catch up with him at all. They immediately followed the mosquito and followed him further and further, and then fell into the woods a few kilometers away from the frog monsters. And the big mosquito in the eyes of several frog monsters flew faster and faster under their gaze. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The behemoth disappeared from their eyes almost in an instant. Only a few frog-like monsters were left standing there, looking a little bit at each other in their expressions. Not long after, the leader of the frog monsters suddenly let out a roar and ran quickly towards the direction from behind. He looked like he was going somewhere urgently after seeing the big mosquito. The frog monsters that followed after getting up naturally followed quickly, but a few of them kept looking back while running. It seemed that the huge flying creatures that left before really gave them a big meal. Shocked look. I didn't mention the monster here, just that the big mosquito was carrying Daifuni, and after the explosive power of its body, it slowly returned to normal flying speed. A sudden burst of powerful power made Jia Yan feel a little sluggish. However, he could still use this power in his intact state, so he didn't feel physically overwhelmed, but mentally exhausted. The situation of Daifuni is not so optimistic. When she was on the earth, Jia Yan once tested her. If she accelerated quickly, Daifuni accelerated to more than twice the speed of sound, which would be an unbearable situation. But before, Jia Yan exploded in an instant. Yes, but 10 times the speed of sound. Even though Jia Yan had been very careful and used some brainwave power to protect her when it exploded, the woman still spit out a mouthful of blood at that moment, and her face turned as pale as paper. After escaping, Jia Yan watched him become as angry as a gossamer, as if he would die at any time. Don't die, I'm still thinking about to ask you to help me answer so many questions. Jia Yan watched helplessly as the woman's aura weakened little by little, but there was nothing he could do. If she dies, then Jia Yan's only hope of returning to Earth is lost. The flying speed gradually slowed down, and the big mosquito observed the surrounding area with its compound eyes. It seemed that no matter how it flew, the scenery under its feet was the boundless forest. He seemed to have flown to an area similar to a large forest on Earth. At this time, the only thing that big mosquito could be sure of was that this place was by no means the Earth he was familiar with. He has yet to understand what kind of place this is, let alone find a way to return to Earth. Therefore, it is necessary for Daphne to wake up. Even though she does not know where this place is, she can definitely make more analysis than the big mosquito. There is also that terrifying ripple place, where Daphne is. Where Jia Yan was designed to fall, she would definitely be able to make an analysis of the current situation. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 381. Now that Daphne is in danger, there is nothing he can do, and this is not intentional on his part. What's more, he has made plans to kill this woman after this matter is resolved. If she really died at this time, it can only be said that she died too early and did not play all her roles. In desperation, Jia Yan had no choice but to hold the dying woman in his hands and continue flying for a while, and then fell down. He burst out with strength, but he really felt a little weak. Now in the depths of this jungle, I believe it is safer than the place where a few trees were before, right? Anyway, in this place with no information at all, there was no other better place or way to go. Jia Yan restrained his flying speed and slowly moved towards a place where the shrubs seemed to be slightly denser. Land down. This is a place with more lush trees than the previous hiding place. Here, there is an ancient tree with a height of more than 200 meters. Its body may not be the tallest tree nearby. However, the spread of its crown is probably the crown of all nearby trees. Jia Yan flew down towards this place with his tired body. At this time, the gray-yellow star behind him had gradually disappeared on the horizon. However, under the reflection of the setting sun, Jia Yan was shocked when he saw the scenery in front of him. This tree covers more than 300 meters of ground. It has lush branches and leaves. The gray-yellow sunlight of the setting sun shines through the countless dense leaves and onto the canopy of the tree, giving the big mosquitoes here a dreamy look. Illusion. But at this time, the big mosquito's body could not improve in any way because of the beautiful scenery. After sighing for the unique beauty of this planet, he took Daphne to the roots of the tree. Parts. The bushes overhead were too thick. Jia Yan believes that if someone passes by in the sky, it is absolutely impossible to find his figure. He has not forgotten that when he first appeared on this planet, he was almost discovered by some flying creatures. If those flying creatures were in the same group as the previous frog monsters, they would immediately follow his traces and come here. It's also very possible. But under this huge canopy, this place is also deep in the forest. Jia Yan believes that it will not be so easy for them to find their traces again. Okay, now you should be able to have a good rest, right? This place is really hospitable. I have just been here for a while, and they have welcomed me so many times. It is really a nice place, right? Jia Yan laughed at himself, but the joke was necessary at this time. After all, the current situation was too weird. Moreover, he has encountered unpredictable events one after another. If he cannot make himself more cheerful, his mentality will definitely become worse in the future. Although Jia Yan has experienced all kinds of things since his rebirth, the current situation is still the most bizarre incident since his rebirth in so long. If it were the young people on Earth who like to watch, they would definitely be overjoyed. This is time travel, and they would definitely be very excited. But when it's my turn, I'm not so excited. I've experienced things like being reborn as a mosquito. Actually gave me a time travel, this kind of thing just makes me more tired. Jia Yan is indeed very tired. After he put Daifuni on the ground, he crawled down again and looked at the sunset with a different style, speechless. There is nothing to think about. This place is nothing more than a new world. Jia Yan encouraged himself to make his thoughts more positive. He firmly believes that he can return to Earth. After finally preparing a living environment for his family far away on Earth, he still wants to see what happens next. If it becomes impossible to return to Earth, he will definitely be very depressed. Jia Yan doesn't want to be a hero who retires after success. Anyway, the people on Earth have accepted the existence of his so-called giant mosquito clan. If possible, when peace is restored, Jia Yan would like to try, on Earth, as a member of the giant mosquito clan, on Earth. Live in a human society. Of course, there is another thing that weighs on Jia Yan's mind and makes him have to think about going back, and that is the so-called exploration ships of several civilizations. If these exploration ships can really return to the Earth, then their power is definitely not what the people on Earth can do. Facing. So he thought that if he could, he would return to Earth. Even if he couldn't protect all humans, he could still rely on his own aircraft to take his family and escape from the Earth. At least he had to complete this matter, Jia Yan felt, before he could say goodbye to the Earth. With the afterglow of the setting sun falling, the big mosquito stared straight at the unknown star in front of him. The star's light was not very strong, so he used his compound eyes to look at it directly without any dazzling feeling. The forest under the sunset is extremely beautiful, all the gray and yellow colors have turned into golden yellow, and some unique birds are also flying in the sky, filling this place with full of exotic feelings. In fact, if you think about it, if there weren't the pressures on the Earth, and those frog monsters who want to kill people when they meet, this place would be a good place to relax. He had already slept once before, so Jia Yan didn't feel sleepy at all now. On the other hand, Daifuni had been in a coma before and woke up, but soon fell into coma again, and it was still a critical coma. Jia Yan didn't know any medical skills. Even if he knew medical skills, he might be helpless against her, an alien representative. So at this time, there is no other way except to put it on the ground and let it fend for itself. Soon, the sun set over there. This planet seems to have no satellites, so once it comes to night, it really loses all its brilliance. It can be said that you can't see your fingers. Jia Yan became a little wary. Although the lack of light does not seem to have much impact on him, after all, he still has his own thermal infrared vision ability inherited from mosquitoes, but in such a strange place, it is impossible not to be vigilant. The forest that was extremely beautiful before and full of exotic customs suddenly became gloomy once it fell into darkness. With Jia Yan's sensitive antennae and ears, he could hear the native creatures that were rarely seen in the sun, constantly running back and forth on the ground, and some even started fighting each other. Of course, there will never be any blind creature that will cause trouble for the big mosquito. Some of these creatures are warm-blooded animals, and some are cold-blooded animals, but their general bodies are not much different from those creatures on the Earth. Those weird frog monsters I encountered before may just be something special. Seeing the size of these creatures and the fighting power they displayed when fighting, Jia Yan's worries relaxed a little. Fortunately, not all creatures on this planet are as scary as those frog monsters. It can even be said that most of them are as weak as the forest creatures in front of them. While Jia Yan breathed a sigh of relief, he also slowly learned more about this new world through these killings at night. A creature with two heads, under Jia Yan's gaze, one of the heads suddenly bit the chasing insect-like life form over 1 meter long. Then it was time for it to feast. Jia Yan watched as both heads of this creature used their mouths to bite the insect until the flesh and blood flew everywhere. Sometimes the two heads would occasionally threaten each other because of the competition for food. This made he watched it with gusto and it was an eye-opener. In addition to this predatory creature, there are many other predatory creatures. Jia Yan can see that the herbivorous creatures that appear in the forest are all running very fast, but they do not have much attack. Powerful individual. As for the predatory ones, they are all very ferocious, but except for their powerful mandibles and claws, their bodies don't seem to be that advanced in other aspects. And looking at these lives, Jia Yan always felt that there was something incongruous. Just when many doubts came to his mind one by one. Ugh! A slightly painful female moan broke his thoughts. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 382. Jia Yan turned around and saw Daifuni, who had been lying next to his body, snoring gently and waking up. This woman was very stubborn. She looked like she was about to die, but she could still wake up so quickly. Jia Yan looked at her waking up, and suddenly there was expectation in his heart. Please stop /U003 CSRP /U003E /U003C /U003E from causing too much impact. If the object that emits gravitational waves is a star, it will be easy to explain. The star has a huge mass and the gravitational waves it emits are also extremely strong, which causes a huge distortion of the surrounding space. The metaphor is a depression in space. The star itself is the center of the depression eon, and the planets orbiting it are the depressions entering this space. The planet itself moves in a straight line, but in the gravitational waves of the depression like a vortex, it becomes spinning around the star. This is the role of gravitational waves, more specific. Please do your own gravitational waves. So you were planning on me entering gravitational waves? But are gravitational waves something you can control? Jia Yan's comprehension ability is not weak, so he understood the concept of so-called gravitational waves without thinking for long, and it does not mean that he did not know related concepts before. The knowledge about gravity and the basic concepts of celestial bodies that I learned in school when I was a child are all phenomena caused by gravitational waves. So it is not difficult to understand the concept of gravitational waves at this time. Yes, Daphne was stunned for a moment, then gritted her teeth and told the truth. When I was caught by you, I just wanted to use Oro's research to get you to the location of the gravitational wave. But that gravitational wave was not a normal gravitational wave phenomenon. It was captured by Oro, and came from ripples in space itself. You can't understand the specific explanation. Anyway, I really wanted to use that gravitational wave to kill you, and that was my plan from the beginning. If you want to kill me, then kill me. Daifuni seemed to have given up on herself a little, with a sneer on her face. She was no longer as seductive as before, calling Jia Yan master. Jia Yan could not understand this woman's thoughts. As a living being who claimed to belong to the Empire, she had never set foot on the land of the Empire in her lifetime, and she did not even have the identity of a true Imperial member. After living for so many years, she could only read everything about the Empire from those videos and materials. After hundreds of years, she could not contact the Empire, nor could she get along with the people on Earth. The Empire she longed for had become her a heart disease. All she had always wanted was to serve the Empire and become a normal Imperial citizen, but now that something like this happened, let alone serve the Empire, she ended up in an unknown place. The connection with the Empire might be severed. How could this not make her extremely discouraged? So, it was in that gravitational wave that we suddenly traveled an unknown distance and arrived at this planet. Jia Yan did not take the woman's last words to heart and just continued to ask. Daphne also discovered her gaffe. She calmed herself down, took a deep breath, and quickly dismissed the lingering look in her eyes. After all, as someone who has lived for so many years, her ability to self-regulate her emotions cannot be ignored. The current situation is to live well, maybe there will be a turn for the better. After her complexion recovered a little, the woman took her time and looked at the injuries on her body. For a few days, As a person who was constantly affected, she suffered quite a lot of injuries, just from the appearance. Not much of a wound. Probably after judging the extent of her injuries, the woman stood up unsteadily and looked at the surrounding environment. From this point of view, it seemed that she could indeed see in the dark. The big mosquito just crawled on the ground. At this time, he was also a little weak, so he tried not to speak if he could. Not long after, Daphne turned around again, but after looking at Jia Yan, she frowned and looked towards the starry sky above her. During this period, she stretched out her fingers and made constant gestures, then picked up a branch and wrote and drew on the ground. It continued for another long while. I know where this place is. Not long after, Daphne's deep sighing voice came out. Hearing such a voice, Jia Yan first felt happy. No matter where this place was, at least he knew where he was first, so that things would be easier to start in the future. This is called the Shoals Galaxy, a binary star system composed of a star and a brown dwarf. The planet we are on may be a planet in an orbit close to the main star. This place is relatively close to the solar system, only about 20 light-years away. However, it is impossible for us to return to this distance now. Daphne frowned slightly, as if she thought of something at this moment. I understand, the Shoals Galaxy had a close contact with your solar system 70,000 years ago, and almost collided with it. At that time, the gravitational fluctuations left behind may have undergone other mutations, and then there was a gravitational wave ripple near the Earth that could exist for a long time. It was precisely because Oro discovered this that he found the ripple. Seeing the woman's seemingly enlightened look, Jia Yan found that he couldn't understand what she was talking about. He had no choice but to stop her after studying for a long time. So, is it possible for us to return to China, Earth? The meditating woman was disturbed by one of them, came back to his senses. Didn't you hear? I told you that this place is 20 light-years away from the Earth. Don't say that we don't have an aircraft now. Even if we have an aircraft like before, if we want to return to the Earth, even if we use all the overloaded flight conditions, it will take at least tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of years to arrive. If you want to rely on your own ability to go back, then don't even think about it. Daphne's words were very straightforward, as if she was telling Jia Yan to give up this idea. However, it seems that Jia Yan was able to hear some other meanings when she said these words. The woman's mood immediately improved when she knew that this was the Shoals Galaxy. There must be something to hide. But he had no other option at this time, so he couldn't force him to ask. What's more, even if she was forced to ask, she would definitely not tell the truth. As for killing him, after hearing what the other party said, Jia Yan had no such idea at all.